disappointed with the result they're not getting?
I think we have to be, don't we? We have to be disappointed to play so long with 15 against 14 and to get a little bit of space on the scoreboard. Not to convert a bit more of the 5 metre pressure we had in the first half has ultimately cost us. And I think we've got to be disappointed the fact that Saracens controlled so much more the second half with 14 men than we did. That has to disappoint you. You know, this was a top 4 clash, and like I say, Saracens controlled so much more the second half than we did. And you know, that has to be something we talk about, and it has to be something that burns a little bit. You know, because opportunities like this, you know, you work extremely hard for them. And I think the massive positive for me was that for the first time in probably 3 or 4 times that we played Saracens now, I thought we hit the pitch with probably maybe even a greater degree of intensity than Saracens in that first 10 minutes. And I think that pleased me almost more than anything else that happened in the game, that we turned up here in the right mindset, and whatever happened today, we were going to be competitive. You could see that. And in some ways, you know, and I know it sounds silly in some ways, I'm not sure who the red card suited more, whether it was us or Saracens, because Saracens are a very good side and they're very single-minded and they're very good and disciplined anyway. But I think it just made things so simple for them. You know, they went to 8 forwards and took a back off, and it made it very simple for them. The forwards were going to take control of the game for them, and to be fair to their forwards, I thought they did that extremely well. They worked extremely hard around the set piece, extremely hard around, you know, in tight carries, and ultimately, you know, they've done enough to draw the game, and so great credit to them for that. And as I said, but we should be a little frustrated that with 15 men we couldn't have more control of that second half.
Should Barrett have gone as well?
I don't know what was talked about. I mean, because I don't know how we couldn't hear all the chat that went on. I'm not sure whether they considered Barrett's just to be a penalty and then a red, and so the penalty kick from that area was the situation. I don't know. Without knowing what was said, I mean, because in a way you would say that Richard Brand has probably been a little unfortunate in that his collision only happens because of the first collision, and it's one of those things now that is just there. And as I say, without completely listening to the whole process they went through, I wouldn't like to make a comment.
Is it confusing the rules for you as they stand about what constitutes a red card and yellow card?
Well, you can either say yes, they're hugely confusing, or no, they're not confusing at all. That is, if you make contact with the head, you might have a red card. So it depends really which way you look at it. I think now the way you've got to look at it is that any contact with the head is potentially going to be a red card, so you have to do everything you can to avoid that situation. And certainly any leading with shoulders at any stage in any part of the game now is obviously a big no-no for you. So I think we know as coaches what we have to do, and what we have to keep pressuring in the things we do. You know, I know full well, you know, Richard Branton wouldn't have been coached to shoulder charge anybody. You know, Saracens are good defenders. They go and they complete tackles. You know, it was an incident that happened, and you know, and I think Richard Branton probably, as soon as he did it, almost couldn't believe he'd done it probably. But it was one of those scenarios that does happen in rugby. It's the way we're going to go now. And as I said, I'm not so much worried about where the red cards are coming from, where the cards are coming from. I've got to just talk about ourselves, and really we failed to capitalise on a 14-man Saracens. I thought, to be fair, we did in the first half, and I don't know if Don Armand dots down, if we can convert one of our 5-metre opportunities, probably a different game. But fair play to Saracens with 14 men. They put the pressure, they put the squeeze on us, got the field position they needed to convert a match drawing try, and you've got to give them great credit for that.
How's Jeff?
Jeff's okay. It was a concussive injury. I saw him in the change room just now. I said, does it feel like anything else is hurt? And he said he just felt like he was knocked out. He doesn't think it's anything worse than that.
Rob, just when you say the only way you can look at it is any contact with the head is a red card.
Potentially a red card.
Potentially. I mean, surely this is about empathy from referees in terms of looking at each.
If you want my opinion on how the whole thing should be refereed, I would always say that all these decisions, it's the same for the competition with the ball in the high air, should be left to the referee. Especially in the Premiership, where you've got replays, you can check all the intent with the replays. That would be my view. It's not going to go that way because of the issue around concussion. So, as much as we can say what would be like and what would be the ideal, I think most coaches would quite happily say, let's run with the referees. If they believe there's been absolutely no desire to commit foul play, and everything there is above board, but we're not in that circumstance, so we have to work with what is there. At the moment, it's massively about protecting players from concussions, injuries. I think we'd all agree that that's a good thing. My interesting point would be is if in a year's time, with the pressure to push towards low tackles, if we end up with more concussions than we're having currently, with a change of tackle emphasis, what will be the next decision? I mean, there's some interesting things potentially out there, but at the moment we've got to run with those rules. I'm sure Mark will say the same. I suppose the one thing around it is that it would have been foul play under any rules, because it ends up being a shoulder charge, whether he's unfortunate with the other tackle or not. And I suppose maybe that gives this one a little bit of clarity.
With Jeff, obviously when he was at Leicester, he had a period when he was stood down. Will he have to go do something similar?
He'll go through the standard protocols. A lot of what happened at Leicester, I think there was a lot of things said in the press about him having repeated concussive issues that weren't. It was a different issue that stood Jeff down for a while, and it wasn't to do with concussion. I mean, that contact today would have knocked out a heavyweight boxer, let alone Jeff. So we're certainly not worried that there's any other issues other than he's been unlucky enough to take a big blow today.
Rob, you talk about low tackle. I think there were 3 concussions today. Players going low in tackles. Should this change come in the summer, where you've all got a chance to prepare?
Potentially. I mean, I think it's probably indicative of quite a few law changes that get sent in. Is how many of them are genuinely kind of red teamed, where someone sits back and goes, okay, so we're going to say that there's going to be a real focus on anything that slips high or goes high as a player ducks. We're going to say for player safety, nothing wrong with that. These could become foul. These could become yellow and red cards. That's great. But did anybody stop and go, right, well, this is going to create a new emphasis halfway through the season on low tackles. Are we prepared for the possible outcomes? And that would be my only statement on it. It's one of those things that sometimes you feel they get done out there. Right, it's got great intentions, but was it done with the right thought and saying, right, well, fair enough, but are we going to create a scenario we don't want? And as you say, I think doing it through the seasons when people would have time to genuinely go, right, our big focus now is going to be on these low tackles. For some players, it's quite unnatural. For some of your big 6'7", 6'8" second rows, who are used to kind of bear huggy type tackles, it is a change up for them. And we are probably going to see some injuries resulting in change of tackle technique for a little while. Bigger picture, it might be really good for the game. I'm not saying it won't be, but I think that we are going to battle through things for a little while. Okay.